by design, instead of proposing a broad framework, is it really needed to get into the finer aspect of day-to-day execution? Is this proposed change in line with the overall ease of doing business approach? And most importantly, will this really benefit the end consumer? I'd like to leave you with these points to ponder. We have analyzed these questions and asked them to ourselves multiple number of times, but each time the answer was no. And I believe that that's what brings us all here today, to express our thoughts and exchange perspectives with you all. Thank you very much.
My friends, I don't think I need to repeat the points that have been made by President and my other colleagues. But I just wanted to make one or two points that I think will help you understand why we are concerned. First and foremost, as you know from members of media community, that members of the IBF are not trigger happy when it comes to interactions with the media. In fact, I don't remember in the last 7-8 years when the IBF as a whole body has come together to address friends from the media. Because we believe that our job is to create content, not become part of the content. Last time, to the best of my memory, that the IBF came together as a body and addressed the media was on a very constructive cause back in 2010-11 when we were working with the government to initiate the process of cable digitization. So you can imagine the disruptive significance of the initiative by the TRAI, that it has forced all of us to come together and talk directly with you. So please understand how seriously disruptive the implications of this is and how troubled we are about that. The second thing I want you to understand is that 2003 September, when the TRAI came into existence, I was given the charge of managing the distribution of media and distribution stakeholder relationship. From then on, the tariff was frozen. There was a tariff regime that came into, all of you know that it was frozen and there was nothing that was done for a long time, to the extent that the Supreme Court had to intervene and say that a comprehensive tariff exercise had to be done. And that is when the authority woke up towards the need for a tariff revisit. And now, in less than a year, 2 tariff exercises have been done. Now, to my mind, I'm not a legal person and I'm not a regulator, but it doesn't make sense. If a thoughtful, comprehensive, collaborative tariff exercise was done last year or 2 years ago, then what is the need for this one? It clearly means that the previous exercise was not thoughtful, because only then there is need for this to be tweaked so soon, in less than a year. It hasn't even been allowed to settle down. As the President IBF was saying, that we spent literally about 1,000 crores in educating the consumer and educating the ecosystem about the new tariff structure, even before it had settled down. And I think, despite some of its shortcomings, it was taking off the ground pretty well. Over a crore and a half people had opted for a la carte channels. So it was moving in the right direction, and then suddenly the whole thing has to be reset to 0. So this kind of trigger-happy regulatory intervention at a very fundamental level clearly is not good for the industry, and the regulator seems to not care about that. The part of its job is also to create an enabling framework for the industry to grow and all stakeholders to benefit, and for the consumers to get the best kind and best range of content that they deserve. And finally, the point that I want to make is that if the regulator is so concerned about bringing down the price for the consumer, then why is in the name of an NCF, the cable operators are being allowed, the distributors are being allowed to charge as much as 160 rupees? Just so you understand, these, theoretically, they can charge over 100 between anything up to 160 rupees for only providing free-to-air channels. Just to understand the ludicrous contradiction of this order, the same channels could be obtained by the consumer by going to DD Free Dish. So something that the Free Dish makes available for free, the regulator, in the name of bringing down the burden on the consumer, has allowed the DPOs to charge up to 160 rupees. So this whole, we do need some religious intervention here. So I just wanted to say that, a big case is being made out that it is about lightening the burden on the consumer. The last time the tariff exercise was done a year ago, this is exactly the point that the regulator made. And all of you reported that. We had pointed out even then the prices for the consumers will go up. And this time, once again, the prices did go up. And this time, in order to clean up a mess that has been created by regulatory intervention, they're saying, once again, we need to intervene. That sounds a little funny. So that's all that I had to say. Thank you very much.
NP, my colleagues on the dais, my friends from media, ladies and gentlemen, a lot has already been said. What I'm going to do is to talk to you very briefly about 4 key things which somehow sort of would highlight what are the issues which we are facing and further strengthen it. So first of all, let me quickly pick up the NTO which was passed in Feb 19. I think if I was to look at 3 broad objectives of the NTO which was started by TRAI, I think the first was give choice to the consumer. The second was to bring more transparency and objectivity. And third is to basically reduce so-called litigation, which supposedly was very high in this industry. And I think if you were to look at the data which is available, from all counts, first of all, TRA should be happy that the NTO 1 has been successful. So I think if you look at statistically, over 94% of Indians are aware of what the new plan is, because that's the effort which has been made, which NP talked about as well, in order to make people aware that this has happened. So therefore, indeed, people are aware. They have the choice. They have the option to go and do the things the way they want to do. So I think that's what has happened. It's further exemplified with the number, and Uday briefly spoke about it as well, with the number of people who are also choosing a la carte in certain cases or choosing only certain broadcaster bouquets. So there's a lot of choice which is being made. And like in some other sectors, there is also a churn we are seeing month on month. So the churn also shows that people are making choice continuously. Not only are they aware of their choices, but they are making those choices as well. So, and the system had just about stabilized with this, which was, let's say, in the interest of the consumer. And indeed, it was received by the consumer and it was done. The second thing is, in terms of objectivity and transparency, it has indeed brought in some of that stuff. The third aspect I don't want to talk about, it's too early, and I think there is every indication that it may have been achieved as well. So the work which was done after a lot of deliberation with the industry indeed yielded results. So I think there was, therefore, what then belies all of us, and I think specifically to us here, is what is the need to then change again? And I think that is something which, so the fundamental need to change again is something which we want to sort of question. There is no need, in my opinion, to change. Second, if you look at how has this translated, of course, aggregate prices may have gone up and have gone up. But if you look at the collections and the increase, and I think I don't want to take specific numbers, but if we were to do back of envelope exercise, the percentage growth is highest for the DPOs. There is considerable growth in tax collection for the Government of India, and there is growth in subscription for broadcasters. So yes, are all the three, every player in the ecosystem, has there been growth? There has been growth, arguably in that order. So therefore, it's been useful, it's been good for the entire ecosystem. Consumers have got used to it. Building on to Arun's point, the last thing I wanted to say on this as well, is this desire to serve a standard thali to all Indians, which should have a dal, it should have 3 sabzis, it should have 2 types of rotis, and it should have rice, only for our sector is completely something which absolutely belies our thinking. In every other sector, there is a wide spectrum. So if you look at Indians, they wear a shirt from 100 rupee to running into maybe 10,000 and above, because depending on which Indian India is a very heterogeneous, very diverse country. And that plays out even more in media, with the complexity which exists, with the genres which are there, with the languages which are there, and with the events which are there. So therefore, there will be different choices made by different people, and there will be some people willing to pay a little bit more. They can afford to pay more, and they should pay more. There are others who will be paying a little less. So I think this entire thing that it should be all consistent is not in interest of the industry, it's not in the interest of the government, it's not in the interest of the country. Because all of this comes in the way of then producing better content, in generating jobs, and in the growth of economy. And you know, these are all the things which we are currently suffering from. Media and entertainment is very well poised to deliver on all of these, and therefore trying to do some of these things is a key issue. The second point I wanted to raise with you is that if you look at media and entertainment, there is so much, dynamism and current flux which is going on in the industry itself. Letting television settle down and do what television wants to do, because it's not only television which is playing here. There are different players in the ecosystem, and that is further impacting the ability of television, which is a thriving industry in this country, to grow. So I think that is another issue. Why should you be coming in the way in a sector which itself has so much flux which is happening, that's the nature of our sector, and we are here to tackle that. But I think trying to intervene in that is completely incorrect. And lastly, I wanted to leave with the thought that, you know, if we have to do anything, you've got to give reasonable time. And I think just building on what NP said again, I think when this fundamental shift had been made, yes, it is always up for the regulator to be able to look at what are things which can be done better. And I think that would be the argument of the regulator, that some things can be done better. But there has to be a frequency at which you make those changes. You don't have to keep on making those changes at very high frequency. The argument of price and bringing price arbitrarily down from 19 to 12, just to leave you with one other thought. If you were to look at the way price has moved in this industry from 2003, and Uday briefly mentioned about that, to today, we have grown at less than half the rate of inflation in this country over this period of time. And let me tell you, all other people, the ecosystem we deal with, which is our producers, which is the people, the wages we pay, you have to pay at least at the rate of inflation, if not higher, because it's a growing industry. So therefore, this entire argument that these things have gone up is absolutely incorrect. It's not based on data. It has nothing found in something which is solid or in data. So I want to leave you with this, and thank you so much. Thank you for your time and patience.
The floor is now open for the question and answer session. We'll restrict this to 30 minutes. Yeah. Thank you.
सर मैं विनोद यादव दैनिक भास्कर से। मेरा सवाल यह है कि अगर ट्राई के टैरिफ पॉलिसी का आप सारे लोग विरोध कर रहे हैं, तो आगे का आपका स्टैंड क्या है? यानी आपने उन्हें रिटर्न में कुछ इसी बात की जानकारी दी है, और जिस तरह से एक रेटिंग एजेंसी का कहना है कि रेट जो है, कंज्यूमर को जो रेट है वो 14% कुछ कम हो जाने वाले, तो आप उससे सहमत हैं?
जहाँ तक कंज्यूमर प्राइस कम होने का सवाल है, ये इश्यूज जब NTO 1.0 as somebody said आया था, उस वक्त भी ये बात हुई थी कि कंज्यूमर प्राइसेस नीचे जाएंगी, लेकिन ऐसा हुआ नहीं। तो अभी अगर कोई एजेंसी बोल रही है कि और नीचे जाएंगी, तो उसके लिए हमें रुकना चाहिए, देखना चाहिए क्या होता है। जहाँ तक हम क्या करेंगे, जो भी हमने बातचीत करनी थी रेगुलेटर के साथ, वो कंसल्टेशन प्रोसेस में हमने की। जितने इनपुट देने थे हम लोगों ने दिए, उनको दरकिनार करके उन्होंने ये अमेंडमेंट्स इम्प्लीमेंट करने की बात की है। तो इसको अभी हम किस तरह से चैलेंज कर सकते हैं, वो हम लोग इंडिविजुअल लेवल्स पे और IBF के लेवल पे इवेलुएट करके डिसीजन लेंगे उसका।
Anybody else?
Yeah. Hi, this is Farah Bukwala from CNBC-TV18.com. You have clearly pointed out that there is imminent bias by the TRAI in terms of a la carte pricing. But if you see the recent amendment also, it seems like 200 channels now at an NCF of 160. So that itself is a bouquet. So do you see that paradox as being something that the TRAI has not clearly understood? Is this something that the IBF has tried to make the TRAI understand that in a sense we are going back to a regime where consumers are going to have 300, 400 channels on their television networks once again, which was completely an idea that the first NTO, which was passed in Feb 2019, was trying to do away with. So just trying to gather some viewpoints on that.
I want to take your question in two things. I think first, this thinking that bouquet is not good and a la carte is good, I think is entirely incorrect. I think the concept should be giving choice to the consumer. And if at all, if you look at evidence across the world, and this, I think in this industry, giving choice to the consumer also means giving bouquet. Because I think, you know, even in a household, there are 4 or 5 people, all of them have a different taste. And also when you're watching, you would like to browse through some of the other stuff, and you would like to look at different options within the same genre as well. So therefore, giving choice to the consumer by definition means giving them a bouquet or bundle of channels. So I think this we should fully continue to understand. I think trying to solve for this at a micro level and getting obsessed with this is the problem. And I think that's the point which we are pointing out to. I think we shouldn't try to solve for it. What you should try to solve for is giving choice to the consumer, which you have indeed done with NTO1 itself. So giving choice to the consumer in the new world when consumer has the choice, trying to make it a little bit more pull so that they can pull what they want to pull is the way it will be. And I think that's what is happening. So trying to solve this, micromanaging it, that too in a very diverse country like India, let me tell you, is very, very difficult and is an anathema for disaster. So I think that's what I would.
Hi, Gaurav here from the Economic Times. Very good to see all of you together. I mean, TRAI has to be congratulated to get or at least the broadcasters on one stage. You know, I have spoken to most of you guys and people in your companies. Everyone has spoken off record. Nobody comes on record now the first time you are saying, but all you are talking about is the problem. What is the solution? You know, that is first. Now, second is, I've spoken to a few people, they are saying that we may think of keeping the driver channels outside of the bouquet. Is it possible? I mean, technically now with the twin conditions, what is it that you're going to do?
First of all, I don't think people have, I don't know who has spoken to you off the record on this, but the fact, Gaurav, that all of us are together should tell you that, you know, there is no question of going off the record on any of this. The issues are too serious. Secondly, the problem, we are talking about the problem because primarily this is the time to talk about the problem. It's just come up, as the President said, on 1st of January. We are trying, this is a step towards the solution. We will persuade, communicate, and use all our constitutional rights to find the solution. As far as the solution from the regulatory point of view is concerned, it was very simple. There was an NTO that came in. It was settling down very well, we thought. You know, there was a certain amount of disruption that was caused, but we all felt, okay, finally there was, you know, alignment of the new regime with a new mode of consumption that was coming up. The regulator was making a point that people should have more options. We felt that even earlier there was option. However, with the concept of making all channels available a la carte and also bouquets, and bouquets at the consumer level, broadcaster bouquets as well as the platform bouquets, both were in coexistence. And there was an MRP that had been communicated so that the consumers had full clarity on what the price was. All of those were settling down well. The real reason why the prices went up after NTO were twofold. One, there was this NCF of 130 rupees. So again, as I was saying, the channels that were meant to be available for free, the content that was meant to be available for free, suddenly the regulator allowed, making, a possibility of making money for the DPOs in that. And that from what the cable subscription rate that should have been 0, as in the case of free dish for those channels, the base table went to 130 rupees. And the other factor that took the prices up was because the discounting had been very severely reduced. Discounting and bundling give consumers the option of having more channels at lower rates. If I want to promote my channel, I would discount it. And it's a very standard practice in every industry and in media all over the world. So I don't see where the problem was. If at all a tweak was required, the tweak could have been, that could have been achieved by just giving more flexibility in discounting. And that is the irony of this new tariff order, that by further reducing the discounting options, the regulator is setting the industry up or setting the consumer up for having to pay more for this.
Hi, Alexandra Omer from Reuters. You've all mentioned that these new tariff rules would be very disruptive. Can you hear me?
We can't hear you. Yeah.
Is this better? Yeah. Alexandra Omer from Reuters. You all mentioned that these new tariff rules would be very disruptive. Could you please quantify that in terms of what kind of financial hit you're anticipating, what it could do to viewership? How would you react? Would you have to close channels, fire people? I mean, can you give us an idea of the impact? Thank you.
It's tough to, give you the rupee value of it at this stage, because, it will depend on exactly what's the end state and what kind of bouquets every content owner offers. But suffice it to say that the effect on affiliate pricing and affiliate income is going to be dramatically destructive. It will be in the range of, it'll be a huge number. I don't wish to speak on behalf of everybody. Maybe the President IBF will chip in here. The other thing is that the long-term effect of this are going to be extremely destructive. The smaller channels, I don't see a case of existence for the smaller channels. I think over a couple of years, most of them will have to shut shop. So the choice for consumer is going to go down. Even channels like sports and premium entertainment and movies channels, which have to go out now and increasingly compete with streaming services, etc., for content, their ability to compete is going to go down. So you will see a massive impact, one, in the quantum of investment in content, and two, the niche and small channels, what we address as call sort of long tail channels, will get wiped out. And the impact of that is going to be dramatic on both ability to create content, range of content available for the consumers, and also on employment of people by the sector.
Yeah, if I could quickly build on what Uday said. So rather than talking about what the impact of this would be, let me try and give you the impact of the first one. And therefore, so if you look at it, and NP Singh spoke about that, we've actually lost 15 to 20 million customers. So I think 15 to 20 million homes have gone away somewhere. And we don't know where they've gone away. So I think that's the first thing which has happened. Across the board, the reach of channels has come down, which means that people are sampling fewer channels, watching or sampling fewer channels across genres, by the way. So the reach has fallen. And there are certain smaller genres, which is what Uday was saying, which have taken a very, very heavy beating. So I think that is something which has already happened with NTO1. But I think in the objective and the way things were set out, we said, okay, this is the new normal. We should continue to work and try and find solutions and see how do we deliver some of these. I think what is very clear that this will further accentuate it. And all of this, as Uday was saying, has implications on revenue, on employment, on jobs. I think it is completely counterproductive to what the country needs at this moment. It's totally counterproductive.
And to add to that, the festival offers that we had introduced at the request of the regulator, all 4 major broadcasters, we brought our prices down. There was a significant financial loss to the members because of that. So it's one after the other, and it's just building up.
Hi, I have heard Uday talk of bundle, and Mr. Vats also speak of a bundle, the option of giving the bundle to the consumer. But the general perception is this order has come because the broadcasters are not giving the consumer of buying less rather than forcing them to buy more. You are forcing them to buy the bundle rather than an individual channel.
Can you introduce yourself, please?
Vijay Tagore from Mumbai Mirror newspaper.
Okay, thank you.
Vijay, that whole issue of forcing was never there, but has been already addressed adequately by NTO, the previous NTO, because every channel had to be offered a la carte. There was a certain relationship that had been established, and the fact that, as I said, about 1.5 crore people had already opted for a la carte channels tells you that there was a real solution in the market, and people were going for that solution. Instead of letting that settle down and populating that and making that, the default standard, we are resetting the whole thing. So I think that whole argument does not hold any ground anymore.
Data, almost 70% of consumers don't buy broadcasters' bouquet. They buy DPO's bouquet. So we are not forcing them to buy our bouquets by any standard. The DPOs are creating bouquets, choosing our channels, which are being sold to the consumer.
And, the broadcasters have offered multiple options of bouquets for the DPOs to package. And now in the new amendments that have come out, there is a restriction on number of bouquets that you can create. So it takes away that flexibility and takes away that option that the consumer could exercise tomorrow.
Hi, this is Shilpa from Reuters again. Given the show of strength, are you hopeful that the TRAI might take corrective measures, or what are you hoping that this press conference does today?
Shikha, first of all, it's not a show of strength. Shilpa, I'm sorry. It's not a show of strength by any means. We all are members of the IBF, and this is an issue that cuts across the industry and affects every member, so we are together. And the only point I was making earlier was that this is something we do very rarely. And it's one of those rare disruptions in the industry and has such fundamental implications that we have come together. We don't know, what the impact would be, but we thought it was important because it affects the consumer. And we believe that it is going to have a very negative effect on the consumers as far as the choice and range of content is concerned, and also is going to eventually force them to end up paying more for less. We thought it was important to directly reach out through all of you to the consumers.
Okay. Please join us for lunch at Shanti restaurant at level 2. I would also like to thank Hamsa and Srini of Sony Pictures for helping us to make this arrangement. Thank you very much.
One last thing. If you still have questions that you want answers to, then our colleagues Sudhanshu Watts and Puneet Mishra will be available to answer your questions after the press conference. Thank you.
इधर से जाना है, यहाँ से कहाँ से जाना है?